everybody. I'm Hadass Gold. I am a correspondent with CNN. I'm very excited to be here for the Meet the Controller session with Zy Bennett, the Sky Controller. So in the first part, we're going to be talking just one-on-one with Zy, talking about the channel over the past, or just talking about Sky over the past year and what's coming next. And then we'll be joined later by his commissioning team, and they'll have some fun clips for us to see, maybe some news about new shows or series. But first, before we actually get started, I wanted to tell you a little bit about Zy, recently promoted to Director of Programs, to Managing Director of Content with a broader remit, which now includes Sky Cinema channels and Sky's original film slate, which is very exciting, a very recent promotion. So congratulations on that.
Thanks. It's Managing Director, but that's fine, don't worry. I've just promoted myself again.
I will call you Sir from here on.
That's cool. Let's stick with that.
Before we really get into the questions, though, I know that you have a cool show reel to show us. Any words you want to say before we see it?
It's just a very subtle, quiet sell of what we do at Sky.
Subtle, sure. All right, let's take a look. Just to remind all of you, we do have the Slido app where you can submit questions throughout the session. I'll pop them in between my questions, and then we'll also, if you want to ask in person, we'll also have some microphones at the end, which you will also get the opportunity to ask. Often I find your questions are better than mine, so I'm relying on all of you to help me out here. So, first question for Zy. What's your favorite out of all those shows that we saw there?
Oh, wow. Let's just pick one and just disappoint all the rest instantly.
Yes.
Well, I think the thing that I love about that tape is that shows you the coming of age of Sky Original Productions and Sky Originals. We've just won 7 BAFTAs, 3 RTS awards, and the thing that's more than ITV, that's more than Channel 4, that's more than Netflix. And that is delightful for me because we've been on this journey for a long time. I've been at Sky for 5 years and I've seen the evolution in what we make in original programming. And I think you see from the talent on screen on that reel, it is phenomenal. And I'm also incredibly proud of the talent off screen that's happening and that's creating those shows. So I think for me, I can't pick one of them because I think they're all utterly amazing. I think the delightful thing for me is that in every genre we're having success. So we're seeing drama is absolutely on fire. Chernobyl's been an absolute phenomenon, and 19 Emmy nominations is huge. But it's not just that one show. We've got Catherine the Great coming up later on Sky Atlantic. We had Bulletproof, Discovery of Witches on Sky One. I think the important thing for me to highlight for everyone is that for me the portfolio that we've got at Sky is now really clear, really delineated, and what we want and what we commission and where we're looking for original programming has really never been clearer, and hopefully this is the product of that. So we've just announced we're launching 2 new content brands, which is Sky Comedy and Sky Crime. They're not having loads of original production, a little bit on Sky Crime, but we're very, very clear that Sky One and Sky Atlantic are where the vast majority of our original investment goes. We also do originate a little bit on Sky Arts, Sky Kids, and a bit of original film on cinema. But they're the main places. The main 2, the biggest amounts of money are on Sky One and Sky Atlantic. The thing it's in Sky Atlantic, it's now purely drama. So we're just looking for the sort of chewy, grown-up, immersive, challenging dramas. I think you can see from that tape it's very clear what we're trying to do. Standing shoulder to shoulder with HBOs and Showtimes around the world. And then on Sky One, it's about being much more entertaining, more fun. I think we've been on a journey with drama there, and I think shows like Jamestown were really brilliant shows for the time. But we've taken a step up. You look at Bulletproof, you look at Discovery of Witches, even Curfew, which didn't necessarily work as well, but I think the ambition was brilliant. And you're finding that production value is now cinematic across the board. That's a kind of must-have. But the thing with Sky One is that it's a bit more fun, a bit more entertaining. And then it's entertainment and comedy also on Sky One as well, please. So we're going to ramp up our originals. That's another huge thing we've announced, which we're doubling the amount we have of original investment across the next 5 years. And that will be nearly all in scripted programming. So on Sky One, we're going to hope from comedy go from about 6 to 8 comedies a year to 16 a year over that period. It'll be a steady ramp up, but that's a really an important thing for us is that the success we've been having has been recognised. The company and Comcast who bought us have said, that is brilliant, please do more.
Okay, since you won't answer what's your favorite show,
Yeah.
what is the show you've most recently been watching? Of your own.
Well, strictly speaking, Succession isn't our own show, although we do show it, but that's the show I'm currently absolutely loving, and I've raced slightly ahead because I can, and I'm very lucky. It's a phenomenal. I thought it was the best American TV show of last year by a country mile.
Don't spoil it. And there's no connection, of course, to who the show reflects to
Don't
your
know
former
what
owners
you're
at all.
talking
No,
about.
no.
Just a great piece of drama.
So speaking, you mentioned Comcast. Obviously, it's interesting. You now have a new owner, an American cable company owns you. What has that been like? What has that influence been like on you, or have you felt any influence?
Well, the change is that we are now, very much looking at the long term. What can we do? Where are things working? And where can we accentuate them? That we're treating Sky, with Comcast and with NBC as a third big business that they own. We're looking for where there's synergies. We're looking for where we can do things better and together. We're developing some things with NBC. The NBC are announced they're launching an OTT platform. We're talking to them and developing things with them as well. So there will be original programming coming together, but that takes a bit longer. Then across the wider business of Sky, news, sport, other areas like that, we're absolutely doing lots and lots of work together. I think the thing that it's given us is surety and long-term focus. And as I said, Jeremy and Stephen, who are the UK and group CEOs of Sky, are having an amazingly great, fruitful relationship with Comcast, and they are being trusted to invest more, which is then come to my area, and we couldn't be happier to help them spend that money.
So you're not necessarily feeling Comcast kind of tentacles telling you what to do?
Totally not. No, it's treated as a third separate business with its own culture, and they bought Sky because it was working, and they just wanted to keep working and get bigger.
A lot of people here are interested in where are the opportunities for them to pitch, where's the money, what do you want? Now, I know that you oversee a lot of different types of commissioning, and we're going to have the commissioning team up here as well, but what is maybe a trend you're seeing in recent years that is kind of shown you what's successful, what pitches work?
Well, for us, it's about being at things, for me, I'll let the guys talk about their specific areas. So it's about being at the beginning of things and ideas, especially in scripted, and developing them specifically for us, for what we need. It's not about coming to us with this finished, a script and a Bible and saying, let's make this. It's like having a chat about, it's an idea in this area. Now, Catherine the Great was something that Helen Mirren wanted to do, and our drama team, and Cameron and Anne and so on, invested in that, developing that with her. It's about things from the start and making them bespoke for us, because we're very specific about what we want. And specificity is also really important. Like something like Chernobyl, is an incredibly rich, deep show and goes into immense detail. And I think we always knew it was going to be an amazing piece of television, but we could never have predicted it would gain the sort of traction it did. But I think now, by being really specific, I think you can make a show that's incredibly local and successful for the UK, but also that will travel and have a life beyond that. So being really specific is really important. I think a skyness to what we do is really important. There is an entertaining factor to the things we have in our dramas.
Skyness?
Yeah. So I think we are a bit more fun and sassy than the terrestrial channels. I think if you saw Save Me on a Channel 4 version of Save Me, would be probably a bit more relentlessly gritty and dark. I think the Sky version had moments where you're in those environments where that group of characters were having fun and enjoying themselves and just confident and relaxed. And I think that's a Sky. Even when we're dealing and tackling really serious subject matters in our dramas, there's some element of fun or entertainment aligned with them. Even Patrick Melrose is an incredibly witty piece, although again very dark in times.
How much money do you have to spend?
So we've announced that we're doubling the investment in originals, so that's going up to $1 billion in total on the original productions.
And one thing I wanted to ask is we've seen news recently that Apple is spending something like $15 million an episode for their morning show. Is that the trend you're seeing, that it costs more or you should be spending more on these shows, or are they inflating it? What's your take on that?
Money doesn't equate to success or to critical acclaim or to any of the things that we're looking for. You have to be in the game, and our subscribers expect a certain quality, and I think I've described it earlier as a cinematic value, certainly in scripted across the board. So we've got things like Code 404 or Breeders with Martin Freeman coming up next year, and they are utterly beautiful shows in comedy. When you look at the dramas we're making, they stand shoulder to shoulder with anything around the world. I think when you look at Patrick Melrose or Chernobyl, but money isn't the answer. Like Save Me is not our most expensive show, one of our most successful ever. But I'm not particularly worried about that. I think it's about being at the beginning of an idea and it being right for Sky. And also, when you talk about money, as part of the Comcast group, we're spending £24 billion on content. So we're part of a massive American studio now. We're in that league.
We were talking last night at dinner about sort of the length of shows, and one thing I'm curious about is now with people watching your content all over the place on different platforms, how does that affect when you're looking at what you're going to pick up? do you think, oh, this would be work really well if somebody's going to binge it all 10 episodes in one in a streaming, or this one is more just a kind of a terrestrial only type of show?
We really don't look at things and say we have to have 6 10-parters and 5 4-parters. It's much more, is the idea right? What's the right way of telling that story or that entertainment show or that comedy? You know, what's the right length? What's the right what's the length of episode and length of run? Mm-hmm. Is it heavily serialized? What's the satisfying amount? I think that there's definitely a trend in that people are fearful of the very long-running things. I mean, mostly the American things we have, which also we're still, you know, incredibly important, having the best from America, all of HBO, all of Showtime, brilliant pickups across the board of network telly on the services we have. But a 22-part American show, you know, you don't have to watch every week because it's single, it's closed ep. But I think people like. Another factor in the success of Chernobyl is that people are going, okay, it's 5, great, I know that I can stop there and I'm not going to have to be demanded more. But it's about having a mix of these things. Mm-hmm. You want and it's about, but more importantly, it's about what's doing right to tell the story. And then in terms of lengths of things, I'm very happy that lots of our comedies are actually a full half hour. They're 28, 29 minutes. We're also looking at, you know, we've got a show launching tonight, a comedy drama called Brassic, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. It's a proper heartfelt drama, and it's got laugh out loud, set piece, bonkers moments in it. It's got a stellar cast, but that's a 45-minute-ish runtime, and it's perfect for that. So we just do what's right for the right show. And follow. We're not bound, and we're not worried about slots and so on. We're not worried about the linear schedule. It's about the show being the right show, and then we'll make sure customers have the choice to watch it. So in terms of binging it, generally our preference is to give customers a choice. So we'll put things up all at once where we can, and customers can choose. Still, some customers will watch something like Riviera. Like 300,000 people are watching it on a weekly basis, and the other sort of million are watching it all at once. So and every show is slightly different.
We've got an interesting question here. In a post-Comcast world, what is the current appetite for international co-productions?
It's as strong as it's ever been, where our editorial ambitions align. So we've co-produced with Showtime, and we're doing quite a lot with HBO because Sky Atlantic and HBO are a perfect fit. And our editorial teams, so Cameron will talk to Casey and his team at HBO a lot. We have the tone we're looking for is the same. So where there's an alignment on the tonal requirements, brilliant. What you don't want to have is 2 parties where one's looking at wanting it in blue, one wants it in yellow, and then you sort of argue, you get through production and then it's not quite right for either of you. So it's about being very clear at the beginning, why is it for us? Is it right for Sky? And if it is, great, and it's right for another partner, brilliant. But we're quite happy to invest in shows from the off, virtually in full. We take, we'll fund the distribution deficit and so on some shows. Every deal is slightly different, but we will put the money up to make something to get it going. And then our shows travel around the world. Bulletproof is a fantastic Sky One piece. It's on the CW. Discovery of Witches is on AMC. Then obviously Catherine the Great, Chernobyl are on HBO. We are very happy to work with lots of different people. Some of those shows were made and then sold later. Other ones we were genuinely co-producing.
We've got, before we bring up the commissioners, I wanted to talk a little bit about diversity because we're already getting quite a few questions about it. I wanted to ask about your own work on making sure that behind the scenes, the people making the shows are as diverse as the people watching the shows. We've got questions here about female writers. We've got questions here about having more colorful faces on the screen. So speak to us a little bit about your concrete steps, not just about how important diversity is. We know that. So yeah. What are you doing? Well,
our concrete steps were that in 2014, we announced diversity targets, really straightforward ones. We had 3 things, one about on-screen portrayal, one about writers, and one about heads of production. So they were really straightforward. 20%, we wanted 20% for on-screen, 20% of our writing to be from diverse BAME writers, and we wanted to have at least 1 out of every 5 senior roles, 1 in every production of senior roles was to be diverse. We've published them since 2015, every year, and every year we've got a bit better in different ones, and by holding ourselves to account, that is how we are working on it. And the guys in each genre, it is totally embedded in what they do. And where we miss something, there's always something else going on behind. So let's say we can't achieve a head of department, there will be, the DOP will be shadowing the direction for a month or so. There's always something going on behind every single show. But generally, all of our numbers have improved. We've exceeded on portrayal now, but there's always work to do. Like writing's good, we're at 15%, and it's still not 20. So we're working hard on that, and we keep looking for more ways that we can get more diverse voices in. And in terms of gender, like when we did a season of comedy shorts, it was all about female direction. I think we've seen a big push from our scripted teams about female writing. So we've got shows from Julie Gary coming up, who's for Intergalactic for Sky One. We've got Billy Piper and Lucy Pebble doing a show. Julia Davis, obviously. So we've been looking for female authors more and pushing for it. So we absolutely are on this, and you can see the evidence on screen. And diversity on screen for us, I think you look at what we do, and in the long run, The Reluctant Landlord, Save Me, phenomenal shows, brilliant on-screen portrayal, and I can also testify that the production teams on those are incredibly inclusive as well.
And so how do you make sure, it's good to have these numbers trying to hit 20%, but how do you make sure that at some point that's not necessary, that you don't have to think about hitting a 20% target because that's your diversity goal?
I don't think the team is sitting there thinking about the number every day. The number is there for me to help and push and cajole, and it's great for me to be able to see that and go, this isn't good enough, push, push, push. And then each conversation is different, each show is different. But it's about my job is to make it at the forefront of the commissioning team's minds, and I think we do a good job on that.
Okay, speaking of commissioning teams, commissioning team, please come up and share the stage. So we're going to introduce each of them. We'll have a little bit of a clip, maybe something new, maybe some news that they'll tell you about some of your favorite shows. So to start, and don't forget, keep sending questions. I see them all popping up here, and I'll be able to go through them during some of these clips, and keep your questions in mind for after. To start, we've got Cameron Roach, Commissioner of Drama and Head of Sky Studios. We have the clip, wait, let me see, it's Cobra, right?
Yeah.
So do you want to tee it up for us just a little bit?
Yeah, so I think that this clip is a good demonstration of what Zai's just been alluding to in terms of Sky One having evolved, becoming a bit more grown up. And I think that we were aware that from the kind of indie community, it felt like cinematic drama was happening on Sky Atlantic and Sky One was somehow the poor relation. And I think to Zai's point, we now have cinematic TV across the board. And I think that in Cobra, we have intelligent, witty drama that's also smart, but it also feels like a blockbuster movie, and it's basically about the cabinet briefing room at a time of kind of national emergency. So it's got that imperative of a blockbuster feature, but is kind of urgent, compelling, entertaining, fun television.
And seems weirdly timely with everything. So anyways, let's take a look.
Robert Carlyle for Prime Minister.
I'd like to see that music play behind the scenes of the next Boris Johnson speech. I think that would be pretty fun. I mean, that's a very exciting show. Obviously, a lot of political elements to it. Do you find that there is a huge interest in these types of shows right now because of the political situation we are around the world?
I think there's something that's really interesting going on, and I think you look at Chernobyl as an example, and I think over the last kind of 5 years, we've often used genre as a kind of metaphor for what's going on in the world. And as we're all seeking truth, actually sometimes these kind of real world stories, the audience are hungry for them. And I think there is something interesting going on creatively to that point. We are seeking true stories. And I think Dorothy Byrne's speech last night is we should be at the forefront of asking intelligent questions for our audience, and that doesn't mean we can't be entertaining at the same time.
What kind of intelligent questions do you want to see shows asking right now?
Well, I think watch Cobra. Ben Richards asks incredibly intelligent questions, but you're always at the edge of your seat, you're always entertained, you're laughing, you're feeling very emotionally involved, and I think it's not for me to say that, it's for those authors to ask those questions. And it should be a variety. I think to the point about female voices, we need to get better at that, but it's so important that someone like Lucy Pebble has a voice on our channels. So it's the mix of voices that is so important for us, and that's why the diversity question is such an important one for us.
I'm really interested in the project with Punch Drunk and the third day, the co-production with HBO and Jude Law's in it. So Punch Drunk are known for their immersive theater. So Can you talk to us a little about what that is and what that looks like and what that means for the future shows you might be commissioning?
So I think that it brings into the kind of conversation the Sky Studios element, actually, because I think what we've recognised is some of our best shows are about stimulating different forms of creative partnerships. So for those that don't know, Third Day is a concept that was developed with Felix Barrett from Punch Drunk and Dennis Kelly with Plan B Entertainment in the US. And we, Sky Studios, have built the kind of production infrastructure in the UK. And I think that experience that Punch Drunk offer an audience has been very much the stimulation behind the type of show. And I think what we try and do on Atlantic in particular, whether it's Britannia, Riviera, Chernobyl, is offer the audience an experience that they feel and feel part of. And I think that there will be, the audience for that show will have a very different viewing experience, and we're excited for that.
I mean, first and foremost, it's a brilliant drama, and then there will be some real life things going on as well, as you'd expect with Punch Drunk being involved.
Which we haven't talked about yet.
Real life things.
But I'm shutting up now.
Oh, interesting. So it's going to be sort of an
Watch your social media. Watch your
I see.
social
So it's like an
media.
off-screen experience in addition to what you're seeing on.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And do you encourage
We've all
people?
had a drink.
Do you encourage people to come to you with these types of, let's take it beyond the screen?
So yeah, I think that what we've recognised is that, and I'm making huge generalisations here, with the proliferation of the kind of indie community funded in a certain way, everyone has been quite short-term in their development cycles. So truly original ideas that are kind of, the development is truly innovative, isn't happening as much as we would like. And I think some of our most notable commissions have come from unexpected sources, whether that's an indie film company or, in the case of Save Me, direct from conversations with Lenny James. Do you know what I mean? And I think that I would be encouraging indies to think about their development process. And if we are all truly ambitious for finding different voices and backing different voices, being truthful about the development cycles that we're all working to.
Yeah, I think the other areas worth mentioning is Sky One, because we find we just don't get as many submissions for Sky One at all, because I think people naturally gravitate to Sky Atlantic, and we really do need those bigger, blockbuster, entertaining, but credible, shows as well that have got that. Like Cobra, they're saying something. They look amazing, but also they can be an entertaining watch. I
think that's right. I think the drama community has kind of almost, from that theatrical tradition, always been quite kind of, dare I say, pretentious in what they're offering. And I think when we're wanting broad, entertaining, populist ideas akin to the kind of Shondaland shows in the States, we need to be better at kind of stimulating the creative community to be bringing us those purely entertaining, still intelligent, still dynamic, still asking important questions, but fun. And that's what Intergalactic will do, that I referenced. It's an amazing kind of space opera of a show, and we're so excited about it, but it is entertainment at its core.
Okay. I wanted to move on to Lucia, Commissioner for Comedy, and I know we have a clip, I think it's Hitmen, right? The first scripted project for Mel and Sue. Do you want to intro it a little bit?
That's right, yeah. It's Mel and Sue doing their first narrative comedy, and I'm a huge fan of theirs, have been since Live Lunch back in the day. We're really thrilled to have them on our network doing what is kind of a big, fun, laugh-out-loud comedy for us.
So let's take a look. Ooh.
Should I have mentioned they are hitmen? Or is that, it really entertains me that building looks like New Broadcasting House.
Careful, BBC people here.
Sue going around on a murderous rampage around the BBC.
Tell us about where you're going with comedy. I mean, what's next? I feel like this is a really interesting time for comedy in general, where there's a lot of conversations going on about sort of what's appropriate, what's not. How do you see, what are you looking for?
We are looking to buy Greenland, first and foremost. We are after what we're staying fairly consistent actually. We're after hour-long comedy dramas, half-hour out-and-out comedies, and we're investing more money in comedy thanks to Zai and everybody above him, which we're really delighted about, because I think sometimes comedy is a little bit riskier and you need to invest more to find those breakthrough hits. I'd say sort of a key word is contemporary, by which I don't mean literally as in we would consider period pieces, but we want a contemporary approach to them. We want to be sort of representing Britain as it is, not 10 years ago, not 15 years ago. We want to kind of be telling the most contemporary stories around.
Wanted to ask, how do you take risks in comedy and go, because comedy is always about testing the boundaries with keeping things not so far. I mean, in a way, comedy, you have to be a little bit offensive. So how do you, every day when you're looking at pieces, how do you know what's going to be touching the line and what's going to be going over the line?
Well, I think it's a balancing act, and I think with some comedies such as Sally Forever, you can take you can be much more risk-taking and then win a BAFTA for it, hopefully. And with something like The Reluctant Landlord, which is our Ramesh Ranganathan comedy, it's it's not traditionally risk-taking in that it's kind of very accessible, very gag-heavy, but then Ramesh's perspective on, for example, being a father, I think feels like contemporary, might be seen as cutting edge for some people. If you watch episode 1 of The Reluctant Landlord on 4th of September, you'll know what I mean.
Yeah. If anyone's met John Montague, we're taking a risk in comedy all the time, constantly taking a risk. It's worth mentioning that Sky One is where all the comedy show plays, so it is fun. It is a bit more blockbuster, but the comedy team absolutely have the license, and we want them to be pushing things further. The half hours are at 10 o'clock. They're expected to be, to push boundaries, to challenge a little bit more. We've got that Martin Freeman piece we've got with Breeders, is his very personal view on fatherhood, and he's not nice to his kids in this show, right? So we're very happy to push it further.
It makes it sound like we have a lot of shows about people being horrible to their kids.
Yeah, we do.
Mine and Zoe's example, but
It is GCSE day, isn't it?
Can you talk a little bit about how Sky Comedy, the new channel, plays into, does that give you more space to
which comedy, sorry?
Sky Comedy, the new show, or the new channel, does that give you more space for commissioning more originals? How does that work for you?
We're definitely looking to commission more originals on Sky. I think we've got a really broad range, and I think it's that canvas. I think within the kind of shows we buy, we want to sort of, nothing kind of too convoluted or intricately niche. I think kind of get going from the get-go is what we're after. Is that really vague? Sorry.
That's all right.
I can set the context about the service.
Yeah.
Sky Comedy itself is the new brand service is acquisition. It's an American channel, specifically using the best we've got of HBO, best of NBC. But in terms of comedy at Sky, it's about it's sort of the best of both those worlds. It's about the best of we do in Acquired, which is what that new channel is, and then all of the original comedy, which is all on Sky One. So that's the whole story together, is the commissions and this together. And the commissions, as we said, we're ramping up to getting to 16 is a sort of a nominal number, because it will be whatever's right, the right amount of shows, the right length. But we putting serious investment into it.
Okay. We're going to move on, because I realize that I need to keep going, on to Phil.
Definitely need to keep going.
Because I also want to make sure all of you have plenty of time to ask questions. So Phil, we've got Dynamo up as your clip.
So I think I've got 2 clips.
You've got 2 clips. We're going to start with Dynamo.
We're going to start with Dynamo. So
because you're special. I don't know how you got 2 clips, but...
Yeah, just short clips. So I set this concept. We've got 2 clips. We've got one, we've just commissioned a show, with a big 3-part event show with Dynamo. And this speaks into something I was talking about earlier. These are shows that weren't pitched cold to us. We went and looked for talent that we wanted to work with, to do something new with, that was created with us from the ground up. So that's true of the Dynamo show that we're about to show you. It's just started filming, so we're not showing you any of the show. And we got a show with Ant Middleton as well. So we were pitched a lot of shows with Ant Middleton that were kind of copies of SAS Are You Tough Enough? That's the best in class in that kind of show. But actually what we spotted with Ant was that he was his interrogation skills that he learned through the SAS made him actually quite a sensitive and empathetic interviewer. So we wanted to do a talk show with him, and we wanted to do it not in a studio setting, but in a slightly more authentic setting to him. So we've got a one-off special that we're going to be showing in November with him interviewing Liam Payne from One Direction in the Namibian wilderness.
He doesn't like One Direction.
Yeah, he doesn't like One Direction. He's just really pissed that guy off. He's a Bros fan. And that show's in the edit at the moment. The Dynamo show is being filmed as we speak. And the Dynamo show is really interesting. He's been ill for a very long time. And it's just kind of his comeback. But his show, again, is kind of on the zeitgeisty moment of talking about what's true and what's fake. I mean, that's what magic does anyway, to some extent. But it's really, there's a really interesting sort of narrative arc through the show that speaks into that. So we'll show a little bit. He's done a little teaser for us, which I think is...
Okay, let's take a look. Very cool.
Oh, mysterious.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about League of Their Own. Obviously, comedy entertainment kind of goes across a lot of these subjects, but you've previously described it as a beacon of tone for original commissions. Like, why does it work so well? And now I know that we've got turning into sort of more of a franchise, right? So how do you manage to keep these new shows going without it feeling just derivative and sort of a copy?
You mean League being a copy of itself almost?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, this incredibly brilliant team that make it. I mean, the thing about League is it's the best entertainment show. We were talking about this the other day, actually, weren't we? The best entertainment shows do kind of set the tone of the channel. And there's something about friendship on that show, and that sort of gang show where you could be, you could imagine going down the pub with those guys and having the best night out of your life, but they're sort of funnier than you. You know, we've obviously grown other shows off the back of that, like The Road Trip, which is incredibly successful. And then also Ramesh and Ranganathan and Rob's show where they meet different worlds and they go down, whether they've gone into the fashion world and country and western and all sorts of different sports worlds as well. They're all kind of spin-offs of that kind of show that set the tone, that we think speak to the tone of Sky One perfectly. They're friendly, they're funny, they're accessible, they're entertaining, they're quite broad. So that's kind of what we're looking for in comedy entertainment, and we wanted to have that edge as well, a bit more sort of late night. So there's something about movies is coming back, and we've got Jennifer Saunders as one of the team captains now, which we're very thrilled about because she's a national treasure. You always want to have a national treasure on your channel if you possibly can. And that, you know, there's some things we need to change with that format, but we think it's got real potential, and that's going to come back. And then we're developing lots of new short-form content with new talent. Ramesh Ranganathan's curating that for us, but we've got some great people that we're working with for that. We've got London Hughes. We've got a few people who've been nominated, I think, for what I still call the Perrier, which must be the best bit of branding ever. They haven't done it for about 10 years, but they still call it Perrier. So we're very excited about that at the moment. And then, so I'll talk a bit about Sky Arts if we've got time.
Sure.
Sorry, we've just run out of time for Sky Arts.
But Sky Arts is a very exciting moment for Sky Arts, and I think I'll be able to say more in a few months' time. But in a very W1A fashion, we've had a purpose consultant in to have a look at the channel. I think this sounds like sort of wanky stuff to do, but it's been brilliant because we're looking at how we're positioned in the world in a bit more of a fundamental way. And my ambition has always been to make Sky Arts not just a TV channel, but something that has a footprint and a legacy in the real world. So the next phase of our development with the channel, and there's a lot of support from Zai and our other bosses in the business to do this, is to go beyond being TV and commission artists in the real world to create pieces that can kind of live there forever. And the TV is almost like a secondary part of that. It's not all we're doing. We still want to commission high-end documentaries and series like The Art of Drumming, which run on RTS. These are all very valuable to us. But I think the really exciting thing is, if you're thinking about pitching to us, is to be collaborating with artists who've got something to say. I've got a real sort of strong voice and want to say something provocative or interesting about who we are and how we exist in the real world today. So that's something I'm incredibly excited about, and we'll be talking more about that in the next couple of months.
And they can be really big scale.
Yeah, absolutely,
Really well funded, incredibly well funded, big scale pieces that the intention is they get talked about. We want Sky Arts to get out of the sort of culture pages into the news pages for the right reasons.
Well, it's interesting. I've been pitched a few things about offence recently, and we were talking about this the other day. That I don't know if anyone remembers the Sensations exhibition in the '90s, which was the last time visual art was really truly kind of provocative and shocking, and it has the art world lost its power to shock? I think there's a sort of interesting conversation to be had around things like that. So we want to be right in there.
And do you feel like the audience is out there for Sky Arts for those types of shows?
Well, the audience for Sky Arts, I mean, it's quite niche. There are niches within niches on the Arts Channel, because, I always say to people, you're not going to like everything that's on Sky Arts, but you'll guarantee you'll like something, whether it's a grime artist that we feature, or an opera that we've done, or a series about drumming, which got a big audience, which took me by surprise. We've got a lovely series on at the moment about brass bands. So there's sort of something that would speak to your passion, but that's
and you'll love. It'll be one of your favourite shows.
It'd be one of your favourite shows, and that's the important thing when you're working for a sort of customer-led business. Sky is.
Got one question that maybe could be good for you. What does unscripted entertainment look like on Sky? Is there a place for a typical Saturday night entertainment show?
Well, we don't know. We don't do the big shiny floor entertainment shows. There's no point in us competing in that market, and we don't want to do sort of closed episode entertainment shows unless they're comedy ents and something different happens every week. So we do have one big fact ent show that's coming back called The Heist, which is a kind of real life crime story, which is great fun, brilliant sort of show. So there's other potential for those sort of. I just don't like The Heist. I'm sending everybody out the building. What have I done?
You actually went under a barrier.
I know. She's really desperate to get out. Anyway, what was the question? Yes. No.
There's no room for Saturday night and traditional Saturday
That's
entertainment.
fair.
Okay. I know that you have your one other clip, Middleton, which was announced yesterday, right?
Yes. This is him being an interviewer rather than an SAS tough guy, but his interrogation skills and empathy to talk to. So it's brilliant, actually. There's a lot of great revelation in there. We're not going to show any of that now. It's just a little clip, I think, of him talking about X Factor.
Let's take a look. Interesting.
But there's huge scale in that show and what they do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's epic and filming and
Not
cinematic.
just drive around.
Yeah. Not just driving around.
So-
The other thing on Sky Arts is feature docs, which we'll co-fund with people that are biographical. So we've done we have quite a lot of success recently with that. We did a brilliant documentary in collaboration with a production company about Natalia Osipova, the ballet dancer, plus showed her the full version of Mother, which is the show she was doing. That had a cinema release as well as being on TV. So we're in the market for that kind of thing.
Cool. So I wanted to get some of these questions on the apps, and I think these could work for Zai, for multiple people. Drama is working for Sky. What is Factual, I think entertainment and Factual looks like on Sky? With these new channels, are the buckets now comedy and crime?
So Factual, we don't really have any. We got out of Factual about 2.5, 3 years ago, and we're not rushing back into it. But as Phil was explaining, in non-scripted, it is comedy, entertainment, and then event pieces.
Yeah. And Factual on Sky
on
Arts.
Sky Arts, absolutely documentary.
Yeah.
On the sort of Sky One, there's no more of that. But Sky Arts, absolutely.
Over a year ago, Sky made a big push to get Irish-produced content, considering its huge Irish subscription base. What has happened and plans to
We have
follow up?
something to announce soon.
Yeah, not yet, but soon.
Very soon.
Yeah.
We're all nearly done.
Yeah.
You can tease it. What is it?
It's a show with people in it. I promise you that.
Sometimes there could be animals. You never know.
Well, yeah.
Is it comedy? Is it drama? Is it?
It's non-scripted, but
Entertainment.
It's an entertainment show.
Comedy entertainment.
Comedy entertainment show.
Okay. We kind of answered this. What are factual commissioning opportunities outside of arts? It sounds like it's mostly.
No. But I think it's beholden on us to be incredibly clear and just be honest and say what we are and what we aren't looking for, and we're not looking for factual. So let's not waste each other's time on it.
Okay. I have a few follow-up questions for you, and then we'll go to the audience live questions, which are very exciting. What type of shows in each of your genres do you never want to see again? And
a
it doesn't have to
brilliant
be your
question.
show, but
Yeah,
like,
that's a good
if you think it's overdone, you're sick of it.
I would say anything that sits in our library of content, if you're even in the sphere of that show, step away from it. So when we did the tunnel and we had huge success with the tunnel, we literally constantly pitched tunnel-esque shows. But the tunnel sits there in our library of content, and when it's up on the kind of front page of the EPG on a public holiday or something, it still does terrific volume of viewing, and that is a really special show. And our kind of ambition is that every show almost becomes definitive in its own right. So once you've got a Chernobyl, that's that for the next 15 years, you step away from that area. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's like, if we've got something already like it, don't pitch us something like stuff we've already got.
That's great advice.
Yeah. I would say probably like gentle, warm bath of a comedy. We're not after that so much, but I think it's a really valid place for those shows. But
What do you describe as gentle, warm bath comedy? Is that like
you want
Big
me to
Bang
name
Theory?
names? I suppose let me talk about kind of the opposite of that, which is sort of what feels like kind of edgier, more cutting, kind of at the cutting edge of things. I've just been at the Fringe and just sort of seeing that year on year I come here, and just the taste and the flavour of comedy is changing constantly, and we would like shows from producers who are really passionate about what the new wave of kind of approach to comedy is. We want to bring that to our audiences because I think they're hungry for a wide variety of voices.
Phil?
Well, I mean, I suppose it's best to just talk about the things that don't bother pitching as big, Shining for family entertainment shows. Don't bother pitching as X Factor type shows. We get a lot of these still, and game shows we don't need, so there's no point in coming to us with those. On arts, we can have endless documentaries behind the scenes of everything we want to do, but that's not used to us. Everyone else does that, so we come to us with bigger, sort of more ambitious events. I think that's
And artists. If you're artist led now, I think that's.
if you're artist led, that's much. And we've heard of the artist. It's well, actually not necessarily, but it's going to be much more interesting. Yeah.
Is there anything you're sick of? Never want to see again?
I'm not sick of it per se, but seeing another thing in my inbox that's literally got nuclear disaster, and it's like, I mean, really? Sellafield? It's not going to be not going to work, I'm afraid. They've very eloquently explained it.
We've got an interesting question here. You mentioned short form content, which seems to be an emerging trend. Are you looking for anything in particular, and how will it play out across Sky's platforms? Short form content.
We use short form to do various things. So it's either there to develop talent or to develop an idea for us to get us as a stepping stone in development. But the guys should talk about each of their individual areas.
No, I'd agree with that. It's no kind of top line strategy, but I think that we are interested in different models of development. So it might not just always be treatment, pilot script, decision made. I think we've got to all get better at evolving our development models, and I think we are using shorter film content to Zai's point, explore relationships with newer, different talent. Yeah,
and it's much more established in comedy and in comedy.
Yeah, we've been doing them for a while. I think my boss John Montague started them off with a view to kind of build our relationships with talent, but also indies. We wanted to kind of work with sort of emerging indies and find a way to sort of forge a working relationship as opposed to just an ideas pitching one. But we've worked with brilliant talent. So for example, last year we did a bunch of comedy shorts that included Alex Brooker, but also Lost Voice Guy. Samson Kao did a brilliant piece with us. Susan Wakoma did a very kind of authored piece, and actually no, all of them were very specifically authored and kind of came from their own experiences. And sometimes I sort of feel like in the industry we see diversity done in a way which is, where the stories aren't really rooted, the kind of, they're deracinated, to use quite an academic term for a second, where it's sort of the background is erased, and actually seeing their own personal stories and their own takes on their disability or their racial background or their social background is really powerful. I think people really responded to them. And that means we want to do more of that in our broader content too. Mm-hmm.
Oh, we basically on Sky One we're using short form to work with talent that we like, who are on the cusp of something, and to develop new comedy entertainment formats. On Sky Arts, we do a lot of short form content. Actually, we will do a thing called Short Flicks, which is in collaboration with the National Youth Theatre, which is young filmmakers getting their first chance to do something there for all over the country. We just did a huge project called Art 50, where we commissioned 50 artists, new and established artists, to do short pieces for us, and that was very successful. So that in a way is less experimental, and that's just doing it for the sake for doing it itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I want to get, if there's anybody in the audience who has a question, raise your hand. I can sort of see. Okay. Nobody does, then I just get to keep going. So great. I can't believe I haven't asked this yet, but Game of Thrones, it's done.
What's that?
So what happens now?
Apparently they're redoing it.
From the beginning.
Because you didn't like the last.
The great thing for us is that Game of Thrones has been a phenomenal success, and obviously HBO have got to replace it as well. They're working. There is a prequel, but also so out of their stable, they've got Westworld. They've got a huge array of amazing shows that are coming next year, which look phenomenal. I've forgotten its name. Damon Lindelof piece. What's it? Don't worry. That's really bad. Anyway, they're doing incredibly well about filling that. But also the whole point for us is that's why we're investing even more in our original programming, and the scale and the ambition of that is really huge. And for us, actually, apart from Game of Thrones, 19 out of our top 20 shows are our original shows. That's what our customers really want.
We also have Maisie's series coming up 2 weeks
Yes,
ago.
we've got a series with Maisie Williams.
Yeah, which is a comedy, right?
Yes,
So
yeah.
Maisie doing comedy. Can you
Watchmen. It's called Watchmen.
Yeah. What is it? Talk to us about Maisie.
Oh, it's called 2 Weeks to Live, and it's still sort of in its early days, but she plays. I don't want to give too much away. Sorry, but yeah, I'm gonna. She's brilliant in it. She's.
She's dead good at acting.
Yeah,
She gets duped into some events and then starts killing some people, and then that becomes and they sucked into this big thriller. It's awesome. She's killing people again.
that gives quite a lot away.
Big
but
tip.
That's all you need. You
Big
need to
tip.
kill people.
Yes.
So my last. We've one question here.
Hi there. A lot of love for you guys. You put my movie on Sky Premiere, so thank you so much. Quick question
No
for you though.
worries.
Quick question for you though is every different organisation has a different way of approaches from us, content creators. Would you describe the process with yourselves in terms of how it best works for you?
Well, do you want to do that individually? I think it best works when it's specific and you have to come with an idea. We don't do general meetings, just have to have a chit chat. It's about specific ideas always when you've got a pitch.
Is it via production companies?
I also think building that relationship, as you said earlier, about building that relationship from about an idea from quite an early stage is really useful for us. And that's not because we want to kind of be overbearing or controlling over it, but it's because we want to have a proper working dialogue with our producers.
Yeah, it's not general chit chats, about specific ideas, normally with a production company, or at least how are we going to make it? Because yes, an idea is brilliant, but the capacity to make it is also equally important. Anything specific about that?
No, I think that's right. I think understanding the kind of territory you're circling and the idea, but to Lucia's point, it's about then exploring that and building a conversation, so you're creating a true partnership.
Yeah.
So my final question to you, since we're about to run out of time, I would like sort of rapid fire all of you to go down. What keeps you up at night about your current role that you're most worried about?
The thing that genuinely keeps me up at night is my kids, little fuckers. But in my current role, I would say it's about how do we make these amazing new shows famous, and how do we remember the muscle memory of what happened with Chernobyl and do that again? Because it's incredibly competitive out there. We're making amazing stuff, but I want to make sure that it gets talked about, and that's we've done great stuff. Keep doing it. That worries me.
Cameron?
Social inclusion, because we keep talking about it and we are all still operating in a little bubble. And I think we have to get better at that. And whether that's the female voice, female directors, true diversity of voice, but also getting to those voices that ensures that we reflect our customers' voice back at them in an entertaining, fun way, not in a worthy, earnest way. And we've all got to get better at it. And I think that is what kind of, I think we could, yeah, I've said it.
The same. What keeps me awake at night? Who currently owns Greenland? What else? I suppose there's two things with kind of comedy. One is there's so much content out there and there's so much choice that I think, there's not a ready sitting audience. And so sort of finding, I think we make amazing stuff and we're really proud of it, and just making sure that people can find it is really crucial. And then I think sometimes, sort of as a representative of the genre of comedy and as a huge fan of it, sometimes I sort of feel like it's sort of the younger sibling to drama in the scripted arena, and I just want to, and I think that kind of comes from the way it was made in the past, but now it's made in exactly the same way as drama, so kind of trying to keep up with drama financially, but in terms of how we stake a claim, because I think comedy is hugely loved, and I think the characters have a place in our hearts in the way that I think is unsurpassed.
So for me, actually, same as they said. No, but actually the bigger thing for me is relevance, actually. So I think it applies both to the stuff we do on Sky One and the stuff we do on Sky Arts. So, how do we make a more emotional connection with our audiences, particularly around the kind of art stuff, and how are we relevant to people's lives? And I think that speaks back into the comedy entertainment that we do as well. How's it authentic and relevant to people? So that's relevances, and my own relevance in the world is probably also keeps me awake at night too.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
On that, that's all the time we have for it. Thank you all so much for the conversation. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you. Well done.